Yes, and um, in the previous conversation, we talked about your journeys from education into your career, and now we are here coming to your current work at Helen Keller National Center. And can you tell me more about this experience?
Okay, about my current work.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I actually in the early part of my career, I was in the early part of my doctoral studies, I did focus on deaf blindness, and I actually did my dissertation on the support needs of deaf-blind adults with acquired deafblindness in the United Kingdom. I worked in the United Kingdom for several years as a consultant for a nonprofit there that serves deafblind people. So that was an early interest of mine, but I kind of diverged into going into academia, becoming involved in disability studies, and more involved in disability holistically rather than on a specific disability like deafblindness. But when I decided to have a career change 3 years ago, and I moved from Hawaii back to California, and I got a job with the Helen Keller National Center, which is based in New York, but has field people in the field all over the United States. And so the job that I actually recently got promoted. The job that I was doing for the last 3 years was I was a research and accessibility specialist at the center. So this was a position where I had the opportunity to start to expand the role of Helen Keller in doing research, both within our own organization. So looking at best practices with and informing best practices at the center, and then also becoming involved in research that, say, universities and other organizations are doing as well, and creating broader partnerships to really just to improve research around deafblindness, because there's very little research, empirical research, that's done in specifically around deafblindness. And of course, also, most research doesn't even take into account deafblind people. Even research that's done about blind people often will, maybe it'll capture some data about deafblind people just because deafblind people are a part of the blind community or the deaf community, but they usually don't extract that information and do anything meaningful with it. It's usually more broadly about blindness or deafness. So my role was really to expand the involvement of research at Helen Keller. So Helen Keller is funded to provide services to deafblind youth and adults nationally. We have a rehabilitation training center in New York, but then also we provide technical assistance and training and support and so forth nationally, like I said. So that's what I did the past 3 years. And then this just very recently, I was promoted to the head of the department that I had worked under before, which is the Information Research and Professional Development program. So currently I am one of the members of the leadership team at Helen Keller. So that's been kind of an exciting development. So now I'm overseeing not only research, but also professional development nationally, as well as information dissemination about deafblindness. So, starting my, going into my 4th year now at Helen Keller National Center.
Yeah, I see. And thank you for sharing. And the next question from me is actually more personal question, and also like my confusion to some degree. That I also have some vision impairment myself, and I just moved from China to New York a couple of months earlier. And during that process of getting like used to the new city, I experienced some challenges in the unfamiliar environment, and I had a period of time that felt some limitations of myself. So I'm wondering that, like reflecting and thinking about your own life, what kind of life advice you might provide to me and other youth who have disabilities?
Well, it's interesting because I've always been legally blind, so had significant amount of vision loss and been hard of hearing. But at different times in my life, I have lost additional vision and hearing. I went through an extraordinary adjustment of additional hearing loss, actually, when I started college. And very recently, during the last couple of years, I have experienced even greater vision loss. So I am now operating much more as a blind person. Although I was quite visually impaired for all of my life, I used to be highly functional in terms of getting around and doing things. And I was able to read print as long as I held it very close. And I used large enlargement on the computer very successfully. But now I've found myself needing to learn Braille, using JAWS, so having to navigate with a screen reader, not being able to sort of happily cross streets the way I used to be able to do, but having to rely on my hearing, which of course also has its challenges. So I have been in that position of being in a weird way, like I'm not in a new place, but I'm in a new environment in terms of having to do things in a different way and understand my environment in a different way. And I think one thing I've seen is, like, I never would have imagined that I could adjust to this. I mean, I always just thought the world would end if I became more blind or more hard of hearing. And I know that, for a lot of people who are deafblind, it's similar. A lot of us do experience changes, whether it's a change in our degree of vision and hearing loss, or a change in our environment, like moving to a new place, starting college. I mean, it must have been, I can imagine for you having vision loss and of course just the whole cultural adjustment to the United States, those two in combination are incredibly challenging. I experienced that when I went to Hawaii. I had, because that's a very different environment culturally from California. And I felt very out of place and lost, not just in terms of my vision loss, but just culturally when I moved there. And then weirdly, again, when I moved back to California, I think what have I learned? I think it's just an insight that we're incredibly adaptive and that we do have to be patient with ourselves. And it's perfectly normal to be frustrated. It's perfectly normal to wonder what the heck you're doing where you are, or how am I going to cope with whatever my current challenge is, but that we do adapt and that we just have to give ourselves time. We have to be kind of gentle with ourselves and say, you know what, you're having a bad day. It's fine to stay home and read a book or whatever, or do we always have to be pushing ourselves to do absolutely everything all at the same time? I mean, I'm guilty of that myself. I've tried to do, I want to do everything that everybody else can do and exactly as much as possible in the same way. And it's just not always possible. You have to kind of give yourself a break sometimes. But that doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean, you're not going to be able to do the things you want to do. It just means that you have to give yourself time and realize that you will adjust and adapt. I mean, it's something that we as human beings do.
Yeah. I was like, just like you said, just feel like the kind of frustration and the things that I focus too much on the things I cannot do, focus on the limitation. When I just first moved here especially in the first month, because
Yes.
I cannot like take subway alone.
Mhm.
So I feel that is super challenging and super frustrating, especially in New York, that like Uber is so expensive. And I was like, oh my God, I want to live as the others do, but it just cannot happen. And I was like, just
Yeah.
had a
And
hard time.
sometimes, yeah,
Sometimes it's like one thing I've had to think about. So I actually over the summer I went and I lived at a residential program in California for blind people that focuses on orientation and mobility skills, computer skills, braille, independent living, etc. And I never thought I would do a program like that because I always thought I had everything down. I like knew, I've lived my life, I've been independent. And I just realized that if I wanted to, I'm still developing professionally. I wanted to advance in my work. I still do. And so, and I want to live, nobody's completely independent of other people. But I do want to, like you, I want to be able to do some things myself if possible, or at least know what my limitations are, that I did try and I tried to learn the skills that I needed, and that there is a point where I do need support with some things, but there's also some things that I can still do. I just have to do them differently. So I went to this program. I took time off of work for 3 months, and it was incredible for me. Like learning Braille, I wish I had done it when I was younger. It is so helpful. It is so helpful just to be able to like write some notes about a phone number or write down my credit card information, label things in Braille. I want to become more fluent in it, but just those small things help me. With the mobility, I never thought I would cross a busy street again by myself. I just did not think it was possible. And I actually did. There's a very, very busy streets around where the center was near Berkeley. And I crossed them by myself eventually. It took a lot of training and working with a mobility specialist about how to do that, but I did it. I rode a BART train. It's not quite as scary as the New York subway, but it's same kind of thing. I rode a bus. I took an Uber. I did these different things that I didn't think I was going to be able to do by myself. And it was, it's not to say I'm always like, I think for me, it helped to know that I have a choice. I can choose, even though it's difficult, I can go and do these things myself. Often I will choose to have somebody come with me or to take paratransit or whatever, because it's easier. It's just easier, like I don't have to kill myself every time with difficult things, right?
Yeah.
But I know I can do it. And that like gives me a sense of choice. I'm just choosing to do it the easier way. It's not that I can't do it the other way.
Yeah. Having the sense of choice is just
Mm-hmm.
like so important. So make me feel like I'm still able to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And thank you. That is also very inspiring and like, comforting for me.
Have you had any
Have you connected with any organizations in New York that might be able to help you with some of the things you're struggling with, like getting around, like learning how to navigate, or I don't know. Have you made any of those kinds of connections?
I haven't. I don't know, like this kind of organizations actually, to especially for the subway navigation and something.
Mm.
Yeah, but I will try to find some resources.
Well, I have
Friends in New York, so
Oh,
I work, Helen Keller. So Helen Keller actually has a the same Helen Keller National Center is under the umbrella of Helen Keller Services, and Helen Keller Services for the Blind is in Brooklyn, and they provide some direct services. So I have colleagues, I don't know what part where you live exactly, but I mean, I can certainly connect you with some people that might be able to
Oh,
just an aside, help you out or connect you with the right people.
yeah. Oh my God. Thank you. That was so helpful. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
I live in the Upper West Side of Manhattan.
Okay.
Yeah, near
Yeah.
yeah.
Near
Thank you.
Columbia or yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
near Columbia.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I can certainly get some information for you.
Oh, thank you.
Mhm.
I was like kind of stuck in the campus area, but because
Yes,
I got more familiar with the campus, so I can navigate
yeah,
on my way to the study to the classroom.
Yeah.
But if I want to explore more of the city, then it's become very challenging for me.
yes, I can understand that.
Yeah. And in your life and professional career, can I ask you to say a bit about what kind of challenges you have encountered and how you have dealt with them? Maybe you can give an example on that.
Yeah, well, where to start?
I again, I think a lot of the challenges, again, there's always challenges with having combined vision and hearing loss, no doubt about it. But the biggest the thing that's caused me the most grief is other people's perceptions of me and my disability, but it's more that how am I having a disability, let's see, how I have to operate because of my disability, if you will, affects the way people perceive me. So to give you an example, so we'll say, I know that, you're doing the archive at the University of Hawaii, but I really struggled at the university, both at the center and the university wide, because I mean, I came in kind of green and rather very gung-ho about advocating for myself, about speaking up when I thought people were being kind of stupid. Not like I told them that they were stupid, but I mean, when people would like the way that their attitudes towards people with disability, or the things they would say and do, and I mean, I would speak up if I thought somebody was being disrespectful of me or other people with disabilities, and that was not popular. It was not popular. And I did have to ask for a lot of support to do my job in terms of accommodations, and so I found that for one thing, people would interpret my being outspoken, even to the point of like at meetings, I have to pass around a microphone, an assistive listening device, and people would get very annoyed. I was there for years and years, and it never was a natural thing. I always had to remind people, and they saw it like the interpretation of my advocating for myself in that situation and others was that I was arrogant. That I literally had somebody tell me that, like that people thought I was arrogant. They thought that I was better than other people, that I asked, I was being unreasonable basically when I would advocate or ask for things. And that was a struggle to keep my sense of self-worth and my purpose in doing the work that I loved, which was teaching and editing the journal and working on different projects, to have that kind of, to know that you're perceived that way by your colleagues. And I also was never able to get promoted at the university. And I think there was really just a significant amount of prejudice that I faced as a person with a disability there, from the top to the bottom. And there was some good people. There was some wonderful experiences I had. I learned a lot about coordinating things, about writing and publishing and public speaking and teaching. And I mean, it was an incredibly rich experience, my career. But it's like I had to pay this incredible price along the way in order to do my job. I had to pay this price of people perceiving me in a certain way, and also not valuing my contribution at the end of the day. I felt, it was obviously there's exceptions, but that was my overall experience. I mean, to work that hard and do the things I did and not get promoted and have, this contingent of your colleagues that perceives you so negatively was it kind of soured what was otherwise was, many times a wonderful career in academia. I had a lot more positive experience interacting with people outside of the University of Hawaii. So people nationally and internationally. That's one thing that kept me going with RDS and with my disability studies teaching, was that it allowed me to interact with lots of other kinds of people that were very validating and wonderful to work with, and that saw me as a valuable professional. In my work right now, I definitely feel much more valued, and I do just by virtue of the fact that I was recently promoted, of course, and also just my deaf blindness is perceived as an asset to the organization. I mean, I have the professional experience in disability and in deaf blindness, and then I have the lived experience. And I think that all of those things are seen as being valuable.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be, in a person's career.
Yeah. Yeah. And when those like bad things happen and they cause some like negative feelings, how do you deal with it?
Well, some days better than others. So sometimes I would be very stressed out, very upset, very angry, frustrated, all of those things. But I think over the long term, I just have a lot of resilience. I have a basic sense of self-worth that I developed through my upbringing, my experiences with the disability community, some of the experiences that I've described to you today, that like I had that core foundation that has allowed me to be resilient when times are rough and when I'm not getting those good vibes and so I think that's helped me to gain perspective. I had, I tried to focus on other things too, and not just make everything about the things that frustrate me. So I have a beautiful daughter. I had a rich family life and friends. I love to travel. I still love to read and do yoga. I have a really cool hearing dog. So I've always keeping my interests alive and many parts of my life, engaged in many different things in my life has really helped. So that if things aren't going so well in one arena, there are these other parts of my life that I can draw on. Sometimes it was personal things that were frustrating, not being able to hear and see. I did have trouble, say, socializing, like with some of my daughter's parents at school. There was times when I would really connect with people and make friends, and other times when I wouldn't be able to understand what was going on. I had trouble participating, and that would be frustrating. But then I would just have to, again, kind of try to let go of that and focus on, something else to consume my energy.
Yeah, that is also a very like wonderful actually life advice for me as well, to not only focus on the side of disability, but also for the things that still interest us, still I'm passionate about. Yeah.
Mhm.
And would there be any suggestions or lessons from you to future researchers in disability studies field?
Suggestions or lessons for the
Disability studies field.
Yes, for the future researchers.
Oh, for researchers, yeah. Well, one thing is just to stick with your passion for involving for the perspective of disability studies and using it, expanding the field, using disability studies in all kinds of contexts, whether you're in astronomy. I don't know if there's an application for disability studies in astronomy or education or whatever it is, to be because there's a real wonderful it's just a marvelous possibilities with that perspective, just like there is when we're talking about studying identity and social justice and so forth, whatever you're looking at. It's the underlying tenet that the problem is not about us. It's that there are just there's change that's needed in perspective, that there are things that the goal is to include everyone in society, and that we respect lots of people no matter what their difference is it's a noble one. It's worth fighting for. It's worth fighting to include people with disabilities in research, even if you're not specifically talking about disability studies. It's valuable to get our perspective about what needs to be researched and how to do it and what's important. That is really what I think disability studies has one thing it's really contributed is that it's really not, research is much more meaningful if it's has value to the people who are the subject of the research. And that's really going to help you solve the quote problems of society. You can't do that if you don't have the engagement and involvement of the people that you're trying to assist and support. So I guess it's just, persevering. It's and constantly looking for new ways to include disability studies into lots of different things and different fields of study.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And what are the expectations for yourself in the future?
What are the, sorry? The
Expectations.
expectations for myself.
Yes.
So what do I want from life moving forward?
Yeah.
Okay.
Also career.
Well, I'm not specifically in disability studies at the moment professionally, but all of the experience that I had with that field really informs what I'm doing right now in my work with deaf blindness. So I have definitely found that I am in a position increasingly to be able to advocate for including deaf blind people in our organization as employees at the leadership level, respecting, working so that everybody at our organization respects deafblind people as, human beings rather than just clients or consumers. And I hate the word consumer. We'll go into that some other time. I know it was, but the way people, like I find myself noticing the way people use language to describe people, the way that they talk about deafblind people. And I find myself looking at that from a disability studies perspective and offering suggestions for improvement based on that. And I think that I see myself becoming, I've just moved of a leadership role at the organization, and I would like to make a difference for how our organization is able to truly impact the lives of deafblind people in a way that is meaningful for them. And no matter what I do, whether I am with this organization or another one or in academia or wherever it is, that's really my hope. And I know one question you had coming up next is like, what's my legacy? What would I want my legacy to be? And I think it would just be that I want to have impacted the lives of other people like me in any small way. I don't even care. Like, I mean, I think just when I would teach and I would notice out of the students, let's say I had 12 students in a graduate class, and usually at least a couple of them would come in with already like getting disability. Either they had disabilities themselves, their family members, or they were just the sorts of people that were just empathetic. You know, some people just are, and they understand difference, and they understand the importance of people's own experiences. And then there would be a couple of people that were kind of, you weren't going to change their mind about anything. You know, you just had to go, okay, this is kind of a whatever, you know, at least we'll give it a try. And then there was always these people kind of in the middle, and there would always be at least one or two students that I could just see their perspective changing over the course of the semester. And it was just so terrific to know that those people would go out into the world and be better professionals, be better partners and neighbors and parents, you know, for developing a new understanding of things. And so I think if I can just, you know, whatever I do, somehow give people the tools to develop their understanding, whether it's about themselves or about a community that's different and outside of their own experience, then I would feel like I, you know, had a positive impact on the world.
Yeah. And I just realized that there's one question I left out, like about your career, and you mentioned a little bit about it earlier in this question, is that your role as the instructor in University of Hawaii. Can you share more about this experience?
Yeah, so no, that was the
Part of my job that I enjoyed. I would say, in addition to RDS, to editing RDS, teaching disability studies was, I just enjoyed so much. And I eventually was the coordinator of the disability studies program there. And I just, you know, I always said, and I really meant it, that I always learned something every class I taught, as well as teaching other people. I mean, I love, like I just described, I love seeing transformation, or at least giving people the tools. Whether or not they transform is kind of up to them at some point, but giving people the tools that they need to understand and know new things, or be able to advocate for themselves. Whoever that person is, whatever they took away from my class, I just derived enormous enjoyment from that. And so to be able to, it was kind of wonderful thing was that I don't think that people like administrators at the university, let alone the College of Education or even the center, sometimes really knew what we were teaching in our classes. I mean, nobody, like, there was one benefit to people not really caring what I did, and that was that I could pretty much do what I wanted. So I just had fun with my classes. I could be very creative. I could talk about all kinds of issues with students, and I was always all for everybody sharing their own experiences and perspectives, no matter what they were. and having open, respectful discussions about things. And I enjoyed that tremendously. I had nobody telling me, well, you have to, oops, sorry, I just did something weird with my computer and it yelled in my ear. So I just, yeah, I had an enormous amount of freedom and creativity with my courses, and enjoyed it thoroughly. That's all I can say about that. Yeah, it was a pleasure teaching disability studies.
Yeah, I can see that you always have the passion and love for teaching. And does it like still play a part in your current work? I saw in your CV that you still like teaching online courses at Helen Keller Center. Like, what kind of courses are you giving?
Well,
Right at this moment, I'm not teaching, but when it was interesting when the pandemic hit a couple of years ago, I've been working at Helen Keller maybe 6 months, and I was just really focused on research and accessibility. But when all of a sudden the center had to shut down all in-person services, they were looking for ways to provide services virtually. And so they had a curriculum called Advocacy in the Deafblind World, which had just recently been developed, and which they were implementing with folks on campus in New York, which was about that. It was about advocacy, working with deafblind people to advance their understanding of what is advocacy, how do you effectively advocate, and then also just improving people's understandings about various arenas of advocacy, like transportation, communication, interpreters, technology, all of that. So they asked me to teach, to lead, they called it a peer learning group around this advocacy in the deafblind world. And me being with my university background, I took a look at this program they had, which was kind of a little bit of a loose curriculum, I'll call it. So I developed a more structured curriculum, and I taught it, or again, led it. It was more of a leading as opposed to teaching a role, but there was definitely teaching involved in it, with several groups of deafblind people virtually for about a year and a half, 2 years. I'm not doing it right now. I have a different role, but I really did enjoy that a lot. Being able to still continue with my teaching work. And of course, I'm still in instruction and professional development is part of the role of the department that I oversee. So I'm involved at a different level in thinking about teaching and expanding knowledge. It's just not necessarily the hands-on delivery that I enjoy doing at the moment.
I see. And the last question from me is actually developed from our conversation. Like I'm wondering what kind of, because this audio might go publicly or like have more audience in the future. I don't know what they're gonna do with the archive, but yeah, if it's gonna reach to a broader audience who are like not disabled people, what kind of words or suggestions would you have for them?
for people who are not disabled.
Yes.
I'm just laughing because I'm like, oh man. Well, obviously it's sort of hard not to be a little bit contrite, or so it's mostly about respect. I think it doesn't matter actually whether you're disabled or non-disabled. There's always other people that are different from you, and that disability is not some strange odd thing that only a few people somehow have been burdened with. Disability is a human experience. We all have. It's funny because I don't like it when people say to me, oh, everybody has some kind of disability, because that's not true. Like, everybody is not stigmatized like some of us are. Yes, everybody is not perfect, and everybody probably has some physical limitation or another, but that's a different thing from, there really is only some of us that truly experience disability in a very concrete way and truly are impacted by the way that the world is designed and the way that other people perceive us in a particular way. So it's a different thing, and yes, you can kind of understand people with disabilities if you broke your leg and you were in a wheelchair for a few weeks, right? I mean, you get a taste of that, but then you get out of your wheelchair and you go about your life. And so it's really not the same thing. It's a start maybe in having some empathy for, wow, why aren't there more curb cuts around? I mean, obviously, definitely. But it's not the same kind of experience. And so we have to respect that people with disabilities are valuable, not just valuable, that we're just part of the community and we deserve respect like anybody else. And also just having a little bit of humility that you don't understand everything, and you don't have to understand everything about the disability experience, but you can still treat people with dignity.
Yeah. Totally agree. Thank you. And is there anything that I haven't asked about, but you really want to share with us?
No, not
on the record. I think you had a really nice comprehensive set of questions.
Okay.
So yeah.
Thank you so much for the rich and lovely and insightful conversation in the time you spent with me together this afternoon.